Do I want where my patients stay my patients, or do I want where it's becoming our patients? And that's, I think, a key thing. Just what I said right there. Is it a mine or an our? And that ability to recognize we're making that shift from mine to our is a critical piece of growing a team, especially a shared care plan related, like more hands on deck way of delivering adjustments. Hello, and welcome to Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. This podcast is dedicated to chiropractors who are in the seasons of launching and building their practice. Join myself, Dr. Lona, and my co-host, Dr. Bobby, as we have conversations each week as it relates to building the practice of your dreams. And remember, you can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. We're here to lead you on the way. Welcome back to the Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. I am back here with Dr. Rachel today, who's fresh off of Florida and looking so nice and tan. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We were just chatting. We're both in these seasons of running practices and motherhood, and our kids are like nearing that age where nobody's in diapers and nobody needs help going to the bathroom, and like you actually can lay and get a tan now.
Yeah, it was really nice. Like I was saying, it was actually a really good vacation on all ends. So not that I don't mean that like not gratefully, but yes.
Yeah, I know. I feel like for a while you're in a season where you're like, do I look tan? Because I have an imprint of a baby across my chest from my tanning.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
they were covered in a blanket and we were still laying in the sun and they were nursing, right? Yeah, that was vacation. Oh, that's great. And we were just chatting about how awesome it was also to have practices set up where you leave and go on vacation and can entrust that everything is going smoothly back home. And that sounds amazing, and also takes a lot of preparation to get to that point in practice where practice can be moving whether you're there or not. Right?
Yes. And it's a refreshing feeling to have too, and I think to some level we all want that. It's just finding the steps to do it, gracefully, tactfully, and to let your patients feel like they're being taken care of too. But it's definitely something that Lona, I know you and I both see many practices being like, that's a great idea. We need to move towards that. Whether you've been in practice coming out of school or you've been in practice for like 20 years, it's becoming the model that even your patients want to.
Yeah. And it allows more adaptability for everyone, quite frankly, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the episode today. We're going to talk about if you're listening and interested in bringing on a doc to the practice eventually. Maybe you're not there yet, but you know this is something you're going to want, or maybe you're in the throes of doing it and you're like, I need all the pointers that I can get. Let's talk about how to start to prepare your practice for the knowledge that you are going to bring a doc on eventually. And what does that look like in your own headspace, in how we communicate with practice members. And then also as we're starting to prepare for, like, I'm going to onboard maybe a newer doc and I'm going to need to train and onboard. And there is an element of it can feel heavier before it feels lighter sometimes, because you have hopefully a very productive practice happening by the time that that you're bringing another doc into it, and you need to train in a doc, which may be your first time training in another doc. So, Rachel, I'll just share the story quick. I can remember, I think I brought in my first associate in 2013, and I went to school with her. She's amazing. I love her. And she's actually helping train some of my docs at this stage now too. But I remember leaving the practice on one of the first shifts that I ever had, where I was leaving and she was continuing to adjust. And I remember leaving, and it just felt like the most glorious feeling to know that people were still being seen by someone I trusted, and I wasn't there. Like, I don't know if you have a feeling like that you can remember, but just I remember thinking like, wow, is this okay? Like, I think this is pretty amazing actually, that the practice is still producing and still being the mission it's happening, but it's not me doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another feeling of that too is like when you do go on vacation, your patients don't even know you were gone for like a week or two. Like that's another,
Yes.
goal for that nugget of where you want to be.
Yes. Yes. So both of us have what's called like a broken white line practice, meaning we have multi docs that see everybody kind of in a shared way of delivering care. So
Mhm.
someone might start with their day one with one of the docs and then see a different doc very quickly after that point, maybe once they're converted. Or I know, Rachel, in your case, they see two
Mhm.
docs on their first day, one day two.
Yep.
Um, and there's a lot of intention and thought that goes around like, well, how do you even choose like which style I'd want, right?
Mhm.
Do I want where my patients stay my patients, or do I want where it's becoming our patients? And
Mhm.
that's, I think, a key thing, just what I said right there. Is it a mine or an hour? And
Mhm.
that ability to recognize we're making that shift from mine to our is a
Yep.
critical piece of growing a team, especially a shared care plan related, like more hands on deck way of delivering adjustments.
Mhm.
Is that it really does become a like we're all in this together and we're all serving the patient, right?
Mhm. For sure. Yep.
And so when you decided to bring in associates, like were you always of the thought process like it was going to be a broken white line, like we were all going to see everyone together? How did you make that decision?
Yeah, actually, so I started off in practice as like an independent contractor per se, and then I moved into buying a practice. And so it was when I bought the practice that I was in, I was the independent contractor and we had 2
Mm-hmm.
other doctors. And then I immediately though switched it to be a broken line practice because I learned that from other people. I saw that that was like the like what I really wanted practice to look like. And for many approaches. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to it though is it can be scary and it can be like, oh, I don't didn't understand like how that would really work. But in the end run, it's such a win-win-win for everybody with that broker line practice. So I took a practice that and it ended up working really well because the owner broke her foot. Another doctor was on maternity leave, and it was just like, guess what? You get to see all of us and we get to learn that approach. And so I think when it starts that when you're, let's say you have a practice right now where it's just you and you're bringing on an associate, I think the biggest thing is the mindset with it first, is really making sure like your patients understand that this is a win for everybody.
Yes.
And at first, that can not feel maybe genuine or true, but it really is true. I mean, you have two doctors that look over your care, that talk about you, that have different strengths, and you really
Yeah.
need to push that first with the patient. So, I'm even coaching a doctor right now who has had an associate for a year, and she's seeing like 200 visits herself, and her associate's only seeing like 20 a week. And it's like, you got to just bite the bullet. You got to just bring her in and help them see
Mm-hmm.
that win for all of the patients because at that point, it's just a mind shift that
Mm-hmm.
you need to make with your patient base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For me, that was great and interesting too, because you got to see it from the vantage point of also being the doc being brought into the
yes.
system and what went
Mhm.
well, what didn't go well, which I want to come back to that.
Mhm.
Um, and from my point of view, I had started to scale. I had a second location before I had any business having a second location, meaning like I needed
Mhm.
more hands on deck than I didn't have them. So it was out of necessity that I knew I was going to pull myself back from some care and I needed
Mhm.
someone that wanted to come in and see volume with me, um,
Mhm.
knowing that I just needed to pull some of my time out of the main office. Um,
Mhm.
and then when that went well, I realized, well, this is the model, especially I believe for women who want to have kids too.
Exactly.
It's like it just
Yep.
created such versatility and
Mhm.
flexibility for, now having done this for a while, like I think between myself and my practicing docs, there's been, six babies born and we've been
Mhm.
able to like kind of like pool resources, if you will, to figure out like how are we going to do this. And so I think a lot of women, we choose to practice this way where we share, and I do believe, like you said, like two heads together or three heads together, you really are getting insight from, all of them. Or like you look at a set of x-rays together and you like
Mhm.
talk about it and how do we approach this, or this happened, like what do you think next, or try this style of adjusting, or I did this with them last week and it seemed like it worked really well. It becomes that, communication becomes critical that you
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
have to account for before because it was all happening in your own mind.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
is a piece of it. And Rachel, you said like preparing, what happens in your mind first of how are we going to approach this to the patient? How do we say it? And do I believe it? Right.
Mhm.
Like, if you
Mhm.
need to go visit some practices that practice this
Mhm.
way to see it in action, I would highly suggest that you see how it can be such a great thing.
For sure. Yep.
Mm, yeah,
Exactly. And sometimes you do need to see it before you can understand the reality of that, because I mean, similar to you too, you've probably had doctors come in and shadow and we're like, well, that looks a lot easier than you think it may look too. And obviously it's going to be hard in the beginning end. And when it comes into bringing in that doctor, whether you've never had an associate or you have an associate and you want to bring that practice together, like I think the biggest thing is taking it slow. Like as much as we know that doctor can probably handle adjusting 80 people or 80% of the people, excuse me, you still need to be there right with every in the beginning and kind of walk through and talk through like this is we talk through your adjustment with this patient. We talk through how this special case with this person, even though, we know it may not be super special, but to the patient that goes a long way. So for us, when we bring in a person, we take them like 2 weeks before they really get their hands on a lot of people to make sure that we don't rush that process. And then right away they're like, oh, it wasn't the same. It wasn't this or it wasn't that. And then really, um, so we actually just hired another doctor. She starts next week, but we've been lucky that she's been our associate for a while. Um, and it's just like you have to take it slow and you have to walk through it with them. And also, in my new doctor is really good at this, and some may not be as confident in saying this, but also being like, I want feedback. Make sure you tell
yeah,
me. Like, I know we're gonna feel different. I even just saying that, like, I know it's gonna be a different adjustment. We're
yep,
different humans, but I want to get to know your body as best as possible. So allowing your doctors to accept feedback
yeah,
makes that process so much more gentle.
yep, yep. That's so great. You said a lot of things there that I think people should go back and re-listen to there, where it's just even like, how do we coach ourselves to then encourage the associate to have some words to like, okay,
Yes.
yes, the first couple weeks, let's take it slow. Let's just introduce them. Let's be a face that they're starting to
Mhm,
recognize that's in the
mhm,
clinic. Now let's maybe have a clinical conversation in front of the patient where we're kind of like passing the batons back and forth a bit. Or just at least pointing out things, especially with some of the patients that like I need to make sure that they overhear me explain something so
yep,
that now I've entrusted the new doc with some of this knowledge about this patient.
yep,
Um, and then obviously your stamp of approval on this person carries a lot of weight, right? So
very much.
wanting to make sure that that's happening, of course, in person wherever it can, but also through the other content that's coming out from the office. That's how we're introducing the excitement we have around a new doc coming in and the talents they bring. And then the part that I think is we don't train on enough probably is how we want to empower the doc to have the words to say to like, hi, you've maybe been here 57 times before you've ever met me, or 500 times before you've ever
Mhm,
met me. And now I'm your next chiropractor here. Cause some
mhm,
of us that have practices that have been around for quite a while, some of our OG patients have seen
mhm,
associates come and go, right? And
yeah,
so that
mhm,
ability to humbly enter that relationship where you're like, I'm so excited to get to adjust you today. If
yep,
there's something that you particularly like, or if need me to be a little more forceful or something,
mhm,
you just let me know. I'm going to err on the side of caution because it's the first
yep,
time I'm,
yes,
assessing your spine. Like that can be a really great way to just, again, like respectfully enter into that relationship with somebody that may have years of trust built into this relationship, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
yep, mhm,
One of my newer associates she did such a beautiful job of just really jumping in. She was a big smile, saying
yep,
hello, and
mhm,
then just saying, I'll take feedback. You can,
yep,
you certainly can let me know if something you don't like or something you do like. And I think she entered it more gracefully than almost anyone because she just led from that place of view where it was not going to be like an insult to her ego to hear something.
yep,
Uh,
mhm,
and then we're all learning. That's why it's practice, right?
yep, yep, and just being present and being, like, around a lot too, like, I know that sounds obvious, but just making sure you just see every patient, see 'em, see 'em, see 'em, see 'em, see 'em, so they've seen your face many times before you do adjust them
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
Yep.
I totally agree. And then once it gets to that point,
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, I'm not totally abandoning you to essentially abandon you, but to go on vacation or to like have the main doc take some time so that there actually is
mhm,
an opportunity for everyone to start to actually be adjusted by the new doc. I think that can
mhm,
speed things along too.
mhm, for
Uh,
sure.
so
Yep.
that might be where you take your first 2-week vacation, maybe that you've ever taken.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're encouraging people right before that vacation, like, I'm going to be gone, but this will be a great chance for you to get adjusted with
Mhm.
Rachel or whatever. And she's going to take great care of you.
Yep.
And you're just hyping it up, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's how we get stretched the most too, is when we get challenged. I mean, we all know there's been many times in practice where we've been like, I have no idea how we're gonna do that. I don't know how we're gonna see that many people. I don't know. And it helps, like, especially if you have younger doctors that don't have the experience to just like have to jump in and
Grow
do
that
it.
muscle.
Yep,
Yep.
and go that way too. But I think another important piece though to remember when you're adding in multiple doctors is remembering, like, to then like be efficient with your schedule. So I think you and I both do this in our practice, but we have like DC 1, 2, and 3. And
Mhm.
so I think that's a really important piece is, and we're even revamping that now because we're just changing around some of our doctors' hours. But like being efficient with your time, with your schedule, with doctors too, because I've also seen it where um, like right now, I'm thinking of a specific practice where it's a husband and wife team and they're separate, but they're coming together now.
Mhm.
And they're like, holy cow, we see how much more efficient we can be when it's one doctor that's strictly adjusting and then another doctor that can focus on like new patients, progress exams, reports. And they were like, we literally can double our schedule when we didn't know that we could even grow much more before too. So it's becoming like, make sure you have a strategy for like the adjusting flow too. So
Right.
like I know both of you and I, we have like one doctor that's strictly adjusting that shift. That's literally all they're doing. So that they can stay in flow and they can keep
Right.
that going. And then we have DC2, that's kind of a backup that does both. And then if we have three doctors, that one's strictly doing like the back end stuff, reports, or what we call like our parking lot stuff where it's, the other things in the clinic that need to get done.
Yep. Yep. No, that's really great. Kind of again, like we've talked at times before about like how do you start to recognize, oh, okay, I've just grown to whatever the volume and now it's time to hire the next CA, right? The same is true and we dial in that the CA has like maybe a where at first we might have one CA and they're doing everything and then we tease that out and now there's two CAs and one's more the chica and one's the coca and
Right.
teasing out those roles and responsibilities.
Mhm.
The same is true, I believe, with like when we add docs, it's like, okay, somebody might have more focus or more emphasis or more ownership over conversion, and someone else doesn't mean that we're
Mhm.
not cross trained and that we both can't do those things, but we might have somebody else that's more tailored around what they're working on is retention related activities or seeing higher volume because they're set up for higher volume because of what the other person is doing in the conversion aspect. So lots of ways to do that, but the point is just like that takes a lot of understanding our model of delivery, and how we want to do our technique, how we want to do our exam, how we want to position another doc coming in or a tech CA for that matter too, someone else that's sharing in some of the like patient related activities clinically, so that we can be more efficient and
Mhm.
actually make it more productive. And I think that's painful when that doesn't happen. And you
Mhm.
added someone, and maybe we thought that they were going to go out and get all their new patients, and
Mhm.
they didn't. And now we're both like frustrated. And so having, awareness of how does our model work? How would I best utilize a doc when will be the right time to bring them in?
Mhm.
And then am I going to be doing this broken white line versus a you know, through and through, like I see my people and you see your people, and why? Why am I choosing that?
Mhm.
Right? And for whatever model that you would take, I think getting around clinics doing it successfully
Yeah.
and asking them some of those questions like, what would you, teach me about adding the next stack? What
Mhm.
are some things I should know? Because
Mhm.
those are the great places to get resources of what to do and what not to do.
For sure. Yeah, like I said, but kind of back in the beginning, I think it's mentally hard to see that sometimes, especially if have been it's your own practice for a very long time, but really it's not as hard as we think it is. And like that's like probably one of the biggest feedback I think, Lona, you probably get too with coaching clinics is like it really wasn't that hard. It's just having the conversations again with people again. And like I said, and just being open and having the clearness with your patients. And if something isn't good, then let's talk about it.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
a huge part.
So, one thing that I think can feel hard is if you have a practice that is really built around your personality, which
Yep.
in the build season, that's something to really reflect on is like, do
Mhm.
I believe that my patients really, or my practice members really are starting to understand chiropractic, right?
Right.
Like when
Yep.
they say like, "Oh, that was an amazing adjustment," or like, "You're
Mhm.
so great." Do I also help them realize like your body's the one that's doing the healing. Like that was a great adjustment, but your body is the one that's like actually doing this for us, right?
Sure.
Where I'm giving chiropractic credit instead of me being like, yes, I am the best doc. Um, because if I somehow have built my persona too heavily into things, or my skill set is the greatest, then it is going to be really hard
Mhm.
to onboard another doc and have a broken white line practice.
Absolutely, and that could be the reason why it's holding you back too, is because of that exact reason there too, and then it's not about the main thing anymore, right? So mhm.
And so that's where like, well, how do you unwind that? Well, you do it by trying to like always push the credit back to chiropractic. You
Yep.
also, when would look at your systems and how you're teaching and table
Mhm.
talking, making sure that
Mhm.
we're really trying to stay where we're teaching about their spine, their nervous system, they're learning something, not, hey, it's my persona that's like keeping you here and engaged. And this was like
Mhm.
us just having a relationship, even though we do have a relationship, of course,
Right.
making chiropractic the main proponent of the relationship. And then then when we go to onboard that next doc and we can sing their praises of like how great they are at adjusting, or how we're excited because they have this extra skill set or this extra technique that they can bring to the table too, and I'm going to learn it too, or whatever.
Mhm.
Now they're seen as an equal. And
Mhm.
that is a big piece of this, is that clinically we need to seem like, yes, there may be someone who is the lead doc or the clinic director, but
Mhm.
also we want everyone to know that like you're in great hands no matter who you see, right?
Right.
And
Mhm.
that's why we're a team that is built together, right?
For sure. Yeah. And I think another piece to that that helps it take it to the next level is you'll have to probably over communicate more than you ever did too. And like, so for instance, for us, we have a doctor meeting once a week. We have a doctor communication within our office, like work for patient updates. We make extra alerts on certain things. So it's like, those are things you have to do though too,
Right.
so that when you see the next patient, it's like, oh yeah, Dr. Lona adjusted you last time, but she mentioned XYZ. And so that they know you're communicating too, because your patients don't think they do, but we need to make sure it becomes a higher level. So having the systems too in place to keep that communication all the time within your office. So you'll probably have to add an extra meeting. You'll probably have to add an extra line of, back end stuff, but those are the important pieces that make it so that you know what's going on and that your patients know that you guys know what's going on too.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Your expansion can grow a lot more, and your complexity does become, like the organizational has to become more complex when we add more people to it on some
Sure.
level.
Mhm.
And that's why we want to really have good systems in place. So it's repeatable and we still have visibility into the things we need to have visibility to. So, really great nuggets for those of you that are like, eventually, I'm going to need to re listen to this because I know that in the next year to 2 years, I will be bringing on an associate. That's the goal, is like,
Mhm.
put this, start somewhere so you can come back to it, and start
Mhm.
right now with some of the things that Dr. Rachel and I brought up of like
Mhm.
making chiropractic, the thing that it's all centered around, making sure that we're positioning even like things like our cluster booking, so that if our desire is to grow, and maybe our patients that are in the beginning got used to longer appointment times, like we want to keep streamlining those things so that as
Mhm.
we keep growing and more people, it becomes busier and busier, that the people like realize like this is a great thing, more people are
Yep.
here, I love it.
Yep.
And that is all part of how we like put our headspace around how we roll this out to our practice members. So
Absolutely. Love that. Mhm.
thanks, Rachel. Thanks for your time. I know we'll
Yeah.
be back together in a month or so.
All right. Awesome. Thanks,
Okay.
TRP crew.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this episode of Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, please click the links in the show notes to schedule a call.